Hello and welcome everybody to the Lakers Outsiders podcast. Gary Kessler here with you as always. We are here finally, we're a little late on this, but we're here finally to recap the Lakers 2016-2017 season and look ahead to a very big offseason. I feel like we say every year it's a big offseason. It'd be nice to have one of those that, we kind of know where we're at. But joining me today is Dylan Heiser. I'll start and go from my left to my right. Dylan, it's NFL Draft Week, and your Niners got the second pick. How are you feeling?
I'm going to feel really good if they take Malik Hooker, but otherwise I'm not going to be too thrilled probably.
I'm already nervous for the draft. The Titans have 2 first-round picks, but I don't know. I don't know what to expect, so I hate that about it. But I hate it and I love it.
I have literally no indication. They have given no indications about who the pick's going to be, so – I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It kind of sucks. And also with us is Kyle Hartwick. Kyle, your Bears have the 3rd pick, right?
Yeah. About those Bears, I hate them.
God damn it, Anthony! I swear to God, if you don't get out of here.
What?
It's been about 2 or 3 podcasts since Anthony Irwin just randomly jumped in with us, but Anthony, I guess hi. What's going on?
Hi guys. Don't mind me. I'm just gonna sit back here and listen.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm not even gonna bring up the Dodger game right now. So,
all right, I'm gonna leave now. I'll talk to you guys later. I just tweeted this out a second ago. I was like, man, this is a really fun night in sports. The Clippers game was close. The Thunder's game was close. Let's turn on the Dodger game. Man, what the?
I mean, that's a pretty fun score for me and Ryan Kellip here, but yeah, no. Also with us, Jacob. Jacob, I didn't forget you. Your baseball team's doing pretty well so far.
Yeah, you bring that up on a night that they lost as well. Thanks for that. But yes, they were in first place until the stupid Cubs tonight. But yes, it's a good baseball team, and I don't really know how to react. It's been a long time since that's happened.
Yeah, I just didn't want to bring up the football team for you and Anthony because I know you guys just don't really like to talk about it. So
I'm not emotionally prepared for a Viking season yet.
At least Peterson isn't a Patriot. Like, that's all I care about.
Has he signed with anybody yet?
No, they're waiting till after the draft.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. All right, so we are a Lakers podcast. We're not just a general sports podcast, like you might believe by listening to the start of this. But yeah, let's dive right in. The Lakers had an interesting season. I think they finished about where a lot of people thought they would. They finished 26-56. Dylan, I'll start with you. I mean, was this team about what you expected, or did they underachieve, overachieve? How did you feel about this team this year?
I think that they're pretty much right on the mark. Like the higher the start of the season gave me higher expectations, but and then they kind of faltered in the middle. But they were around like 26 wins is what I was thinking. So
yeah, Jacob. Should we have known better by the Lakers' hot start to not get ahead of ourselves? Or they looked really good, right? I think it was probably kind of reasonable to think that they could be a lot better than what people thought they would.
I had probably some terrible takes about when they started, but it was fun to watch the Lakers be decent again. It was can't really blame anybody for getting kind of caught up in that. It was it's been a long time since they've even been a 500 team, so to see them kind of playing at the level they were, I got kind of sucked into it. I thought I was talking about them being a playoff team 20 games into the season, so maybe we should have known better, probably should have known better, but it was fun for those 20 games. It was kind of hopefully a preview of what's to come.
Yeah, Kyle, it was I mean, you had a great start to the year and a pretty strong finish. Well, depending on how your viewpoint was on the tank, it was those like middle 60 games that were really killing the Lakers.
And that's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, the Lakers ended up exactly where I thought they would, but they didn't get there how I thought they would. Because I thought they'd have like about a 9-10 game improvement, but I didn't expect them to start the season how they did and then end the season how they did. So
yeah, I think I kind of
Nance described it to me was a 50-game rough patch right in the middle of the season.
Holy cow!
Those darn
Jesus.
50 games.
This is the Silver Screen and Outsiders podcast.
Everybody, come on! Why don't we all just?
Drew's just over there. We're just gonna pull him in too.
We're up to what, 6 people on this podcast now? So
yeah.
this isn't
Good
even a
luck hosting,
podcast
Gary.
anymore. Yeah, it's just a group chat. I'm gonna have to utilize
every host like worst nightmare is what's going on right now.
I'm gonna have to utilize the boot button at some point on this thing. But
Start with Jacob.
No, I'll throw it to you, Silver Screen and Roll, guys. Just kind of your thoughts on the season. I mean, you didn't expect the Lakers. Like, I thought that they would finish the year pretty strong because that's kind of – with a young team, you just expect them to get better over time. Did you guys – I mean, how surprising was the start of the year, though?
It was pretty surprising. I think Anthony and I spent the whole first 20 games of the season being like, this just can't keep up. There's no way that they're going to continue to do this. And then sure enough, it only took us 20 games, but we were finally right. And the Lakers lost 40 games in a row or something like that.
Yeah, they went on.
Felt like 40 games in a row.
Yeah,
it was
pretty much.
I always felt bad because I was telling people, hey, let's calm down. Let's not talk about the playoffs. I was the wet blanket, and my mentions were always in a bad place. And then instead of people saying like, hey, way to go, you thought ahead, or hey, way to go, you were thinking realistically, it was, hey, jackass, you jinxed the team.
Stop being a hater, Anthony.
It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy of because I said that the Lakers were not a playoff team a season after winning 17 games, I was somehow ensuring that the Lakers were not going to be a playoff team. So sorry, everybody.
The players looked at your tweets and the podcast and they're like, oh, wait, that's right. We do.
It could have been worse, though. You could have said that we should trade for Carmelo Anthony or something like that so we can make
Yeah,
I'm sure that won't come up. I'm sure that won't come up at any point during this conversation.
Not during our off-season talk. A little later on, but no, Anthony, you got to watch out for those Jerry West stands, man. I know they're constantly lurking your Twitter account. So, how do we feel about Luke Walton? Jacob, I'll throw it to you first. First year as a head coach for him, or first true season as a head coach. He kind of had that little stint in Golden State last year. How did you feel about him? What kind of grade would you give on him? Did he meet your expectations? That sort of thing.
I think sometimes we all kind of forgot that he was a first-year head coach at times. He had things he probably needs to improve upon. I thought at times his rotations, just the fact that he basically had 2 separate 5-man lineups at the beginning of the year, and he stuck with guys like Lou Williams probably a little longer than he should. Things like that he had to – hopefully he kind of learns from this offseason. But, I mean, overall he's not Byron Scott, so that's a huge bonus. And
that's a fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, there's no fines here. And he I mean, overall I'd probably give him something like probably a B, something like that. I mean, he was still a good coach. I mean, everybody had great things to say about him during the exit interviews. So I was happy with the large majority of what he did this year.
Yeah, I'm happy that he's the Lakers coach. I'll get to my kind of assessment on him in a second. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Luke Walton in his first year as Lakers head coach?
Like Jacob, I was pretty pleased with him. He didn't do anything long-term stupid with the rotations. Like, there were some moments in games where you're like, why are you sticking with this guy for so long? Or why are you doing this? But like Jacob said, that comes with being a true first-year head coach. He didn't do anything. He didn't like discourage the players like Byron seemed to sometimes the previous year. I know that's a fine, but we'll get over it. But I was really proud with what he did, and he seemed to inspire the players to really kind of grow to be what we want them to be. And he made them a cohesive unit. So I'd give him like a B+. I mean, I wouldn't say, he's coach of the year or anything like what a lot of people were saying in that first 20-game stint, but
I was guilty of that.
Yeah, but he was pretty darn good, and I think we kind of underappreciate him at times. So
yeah,
well, I think we'll get used to it.
Can I cut in really quick though? So
No.
all right, go ahead, continue. But I agree with what you guys are saying, and I agree with the players who sang his praises after the year. But can I just ask a pretty obvious question? Like, what the F took so long to get Clarkson and Russell in the same starting lineup together? Like, that should have been something that was figured out in the first 30 games, 40 games.
Yeah.
And it took 70.
He didn't even do it in the preseason either. It was weird that he was so adamant on those two not playing together.
And it
Yeah,
pretty
didn't make
obviously had an effect on those guys when they went out there and played together. They pretty obviously were pretty excited to play together out there. And I just –
To be fair to Luke, those lineups were really bad when they did mix.
But
in
the
the middle
team
of
was
games.
really bad.
Yeah.
The team, okay, yes, the lineup was bad on a 26 team, on a 26-win team. Like, I guess for me, if I was Magic, if I was Pelinka, I'd be kind of frustrated with Luke over the fact that they're heading into yet another offseason in which they don't necessarily know if Clarkson and Russell can play together, and part of that falls on the head coach. And this is with agreeing with what everybody has said, that he did really well this year for a first-year head coach, but organizationally, I think that was a bit of a failure.
Right. No, I would definitely agree with that. There was a lot of things with the lineups that I didn't really like about Luke throughout the season, and like you said, Anthony, it's a 26-win team, so there's not going to be a lot of different combinations that are super effective. But I mean, there were a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily thrilled with Luke about this season. I'd give him a passing grade, and I think he can, develop into a really, really good NBA coach. And it's not to say that he's a bad coach. I'd give him probably honestly a C- or a C, which is, like I said, it's a passing grade. But there were a lot of things this year that I don't know, it just kind of irritated me. And Anthony, you mentioned the Clarkson and Russell thing. That was one of them. And just some of the lineup combinations and even in games when Russell played well, he didn't seem to want to put him back out there as much as he probably should have. And playing Ingram a lot, even when Ingram didn't play well. And there's just a lot of things that kind of went into it. Overall, I'm happy that, like I said, that Luke is the Lakers head coach, but there were a lot of things that kind of irritated me along the way. So, Dylan, you haven't really chimed in yet. I know you're a big Luke Walton guy. Anything I say, you got anything to kind of rebut that?
Well, not like a rebuttal or anything, but none of you guys mentioned how handsome he is. I mean, come on. But yeah, I mean, I have my gripes with Luke, like especially the D'Angelo thing, like him not coming in as quickly in the fourth quarter as I would like. But I think that the biggest thing that he had to do this year to like earn my trust was like try to rebuild that culture that like Byron damaged so much, and I think that he did that. So I think that there obviously like there were bumps along the way, but he showed some promise, and like he won over the locker room, it seemed like. So in the first year, I feel like that's a pretty good accomplishment for a coach.
Yeah, no, the rotations were probably the most irritating thing for me, but yeah, like you said, they're starting to kind of rebuild that culture because they under hey, Harrison and Anthony, what was the previous head coach's name?
Some guy, Moron Scott? Was it that his name?
Myron Bott.
Yeah, no, it was such a toxic environment. And Harrison, you covered the team when he was there. I mean, could you kind of notice just the difference of being there and being in the locker room of kind of the environment of the team?
I guess what I would say is the locker room seemed a lot more positive this year and like a more upbeat for most of the season until they like really got into the dregs of losing at the end. But I also think that some of that is to do with having like a younger roster, some more excitable guys. Like Zubac wasn't there last year. You know, Nwaba was pretty happy to be there, like for his part during this year. So I think some of that is just like the difference in players. But thanks, Anthony, for like throwing me off with your makeshift teleprompter. But no, I mean, the locker room. Long story short, it definitely did seem like more of a positive place this season. But I would, caution that with that they were having more success early in the season. So of course, guys are going to be in a better mood.
And I also think too, like you had a whole bunch of guys who are brand new to an organization. There was I don't think in the NBA, aside from LeBron, I don't think another team was going to let Kobe run everything the way, he did. And those guys were they always felt like they were looking over their shoulder with every question they answered. If there was ever a Kobe question and they didn't say anything other than like, I pray to Kobe every night before I go to bed, then they were worried that they would lose their jobs. It was
That's
pretty
what I
obvious. You go to bed like Kobe. No, but like, but I thought this year was pretty obvious with not only was the last moron not there and was, now you have Magic talking about 10% body fat. Like I know Byron is out there right now, just like pinching his arm like, hey, I have under 10%. Just like, let everybody know. But like with Kobe, I thought he was holding the entire locker room hostage, and I think to a
hold on, just to save my co-host, not literally. I just don't want us to get in trouble for libel.
After watching Muse Cage and after like he compared guarding Iverson to studying great white sharks. Like, are we sure he wasn't?
No, not compared. He watched film of great white sharks to learn how to guard Iverson.
Like that guy was going to do whatever it took to make sure that locker room was his. Like he used to hiss at people for the ball. Like actually hiss. Like Harrison, say something. Hey, say something.
Anthony, what's it?
It's my turn.
Well, that was more Caesar Milan dog whisperer-ish. I was gonna say it would be more like if I wanted a chance to talk on the podcast and you were talking, I'd just like hiss at you that it was time to throw to me.
But I really think I don't. It's because of the way the Lakers are covered. I don't think we're allowed to shit on Kobe on his way out. But him not being in the locker room this year was probably a huge reason why there was a huge weight lifted from all these kids. We can't ignore that.
Oh yeah, well, and that's kind of what everybody kind of said about the Lakers was that they couldn't truly start to rebuild and move on until Kobe was out of the way, And I mean that's what it felt like. It just was, yeah. Like, I mean, I agree with what you guys said. It was just a totally different feel around the team. You didn't have kind of Kobe's farewell clouding over the season because, I mean, 2 seasons ago now, that's all of the year was really about. Even though the Lakers had a couple really nice young pieces that, you wanted to see get some opportunities, it just became all about Kobe. And as much as I love Kobe, that kind of hindered some development along the way. So that's tough. But speaking of the young players, I'm curious to see if any of you guys, Kyle, I'll throw this to you first. Was there a certain young player on this roster that kind of changed your perspective on them this season, like for good or for bad?
Yeah, it's unfortunately on like the bad range of things. And it wasn't even like he did anything terrible. It's just he didn't do anything great like I thought he might. It was his 3rd season in the league. I thought he might take off a little bit more. But I think of Julius Randle as more of a trade piece now. than I do as like a feature of the young core. Like anytime I think of like, oh, who would I have as like my Lakers of the future, I think of D'Lo, I think of Ingram, but I'm not necessarily thinking of Randall as that anymore. And I know that this kind of sounds weird to say, but like with all the rumors going around about Paul George and Carmelo Anthony, all that stuff, you know, you can't help but think about like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not a rumor. That's just Anthony throwing things out there.
That's Carmelo Anthony Irwin over there.
Right. You kind of
Lakers beat writer Anthony Irwin says he wants the Lakers to trade for Carmelo Anthony.
Right. You kind of can't help but think like, well, what would be the max you would give up? And he's like always in that for me. So, sorry, Julius, I love you, man, but you didn't do anything like super special this year.
Yeah.
Sucks.
It was kind of funny, like to kind of like piggyback on that point. At the end of the year, I went back and I looked at all the Lakers stats from like 1 year from last year to this year, and Randall's stats actually got less impressive. You know, and that's not that stats don't always tell all the story, obviously, but I thought to myself, like, you know, he really should have been more impressive this year. I think it's almost safe to say that last year, you know, because every single Lakers telecast, they were talking about how Randall was averaging a double-double, right? That was
They mentioned double-doubles more than an In-N-Out commercial.
Yeah, it's like that's what a basketball player is all about. Like, right? Like that's what you kept on hearing about this guy. And then this year, it was just non-present. Going into the year, I kind of preferred Nance's fit with the Lakers starting five, but now I could see both those guys moving on, and I don't think I would necessarily lose any sleep.
Yeah, Jacob, do you agree with that? I mean, I like Randall still. I mean, there were certain things that I like that I saw from him this year, and certain things that are still make you want to rip your hair out. But what's your stance on Julius?
I can understand the sentiment that he wasn't, I guess, as impressive as we expected him to be. I think it's a bit unfair to call him by technicality, he is a third-year player, but this is essentially his second year in the league. But yeah, I mean, his numbers weren't quite as impressive this year. He had basically the same usage rate. It was a bit of a different kind of offense for him. I mean, we say his numbers aren't impressive, and he had, 3 triple-doubles this year, something like that.
Daryl Morey is so pissed at you right now.
Regardless, whatever you think of triple-doubles, it is impressive. And I don't know. I mean, I can understand how, I guess, people would want more from him. I mean, at times I was left kind of wanting more from him, but I think the person I was kind of most down on this year was probably Jordan Clarkson, because he didn't really improve a whole lot. And like his flaws seem to be only getting more obvious. Like he can't defend anything. He can't, he seems to be regressing almost. He was such a good pick and roll type of guy as a rookie, and now he's got some really bad tunnel vision and just stuff like that. That was the guy that kind of left me wanting more the most from the team this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think the guy that, and I don't know if it's necessarily disappointment. It's just kind of the fact that he seemed to capped out as a player. You know, Clarkson, I just feel like he pretty much, for the most part, is what he's always going to be. You know, he hasn't really necessarily improved, since his rookie year. He's kind of the same player. He might be marginally better in certain areas, but the decision-making, I think the inability to create for others consistently is something that's frustrating. And just quite frankly, he kills ball movement a lot. And that's the biggest thing that drives me crazy is if when he catches the ball and then he pounds the ball into the floor out, 30 feet from the hoop. It's not accomplishing anything. And when he dribbles with a purpose and he catches and he makes quick decisions, he's a lot better, but we need to see that more often from him, whether it's just catching the ball and moving it to the next man and then, moving away from the ball or catching and driving. It's just got to be much quicker. He's got to be much more decisive. And that, to me, he was the most, like I said, I don't want to say disappointing because I think he still had some moments where he played really well. But, that was the guy that I really hoped in this new system, he would kind of take a bigger step than he did. But we're being really, really negative here. So, Dylan, talk about I know you kind of have the same viewpoint as I do on this player, but what did you see with D'Angelo Russell in his second season?
D'Angelo, he had a really roller coaster season in my opinion. I thought that he might take a bigger jump than he did, but with everything that happened to him with the injuries and stuff, I kind of understand why he didn't take that leap until after the All-Star break. But after the All-Star break, he looked like a future face of the franchise, like we've all been hoping he would. And so, I was really impressed with his play. He is shooting the ball a lot better from three, shooting more consistently, and just showing that he can kind of take over games at points because they were so much better with him on the floor. And I think they just need to figure out his backcourt mate and maybe somebody else that can create besides him, because when he's not on the floor, their offense is just not nearly the same, and they really miss him when he's not on the court. So I think he kind of was able to show why he's so important to the team.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum, is D'Angelo still the most important young guy to this team, or do you think it's Ingram now, or do you think it's going to become Ingram very soon?
I call dibs on Tweedledee Angelo.
I was going to say that you're Tweedledum for sure.
No, I got the pun off. I win. I'm Tweedle pun and Tweedledee Angelo. You're just Tweedledum.
That was dumb.
Boot button.
I still, in my opinion, he has the highest ceiling of any member of the Lakers' young core. I really like what he brings as both a scorer and a distributor. I think his defense could get better, even if it hasn't really yet. I don't think that he will always be a minus on that end. I think that he could become an average defender. And like I said, whether or not he's playing point guard or shooting guard or whatever positional designation they're putting on it, I just think that he can do a lot of really helpful things. And I really like what I saw from Brandon Ingram down the stretch too, but I'm still higher on D'Angelo going forward.
I'll put it like this.
What do you think, Tweedle idiot?
I'll put it like this. I think with D'Angelo, it's harder to figure out what he absolutely needs to get better at, right? He needs to improve on his foot speed. He needs to improve on off the dribble 3-pointers. He needs
his playing time.
He needs to, but this is two coaches now, two opposite ends of the spectrum coaches now, where you're dealing with the same, he couldn't get consistent playing time in the fourth quarter.
Well, I think the difference is last year he wasn't playing because of Kobe, essentially, and this year he wasn't playing because Lou Williams was a fireball.
Right, but would any other, I
don't think it's nothing. I just don't know if it's as big I don't know if it's a huge thing.
The question I'm asking is would any other player who a franchise is willing to hang their hat on have to deal with that same question with two different coaches? They would fire the first coach, and then they would be if the second coach comes in and you still have the same question, you kind of have to ask yourself what's the common denominator here, right? That's why I'm more willing to go with Brandon Ingram as the more important key moving forward, because it's very obvious what he needs to improve on. He needs to get stronger, and once he gets stronger, everything else falls in line. With Russell, there is no one thing that he needs to get better at that everything else is going to fall in line with. And Ingram is essentially a year younger.
Yep.
Right. And, I guess for me, I could definitely see Russell being the better player of all of the Lakers' young core. But if I had to actually bet on it, and if I were the Lakers and I had to decide on one versus the other, which it's kind of weird that we've reached that point now that it's one.
They have too many good young guys. Got to get rid of some.
It's kind of weird between those two. It's like mutually exclusive. One is going to be good, and one just straight out sucks. But
it's like Shaq and Kobe without the disagreement or the success.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like it reminds me back in the day of like Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones, where it was this really weird dynamic where a lot of people back then were just, and I'm older than everybody here.
I was going to say, I don't know if anybody on this podcast is old enough to get this reference.
It was like Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, and Kobe, and for a while there, it was like one of those three needed to be kept, and eventually that's how it turned out. But that's only because the Lakers made, in my opinion, pretty stupid trade with Nick Van Exel and Glenn Rice or whatever. But no, was it Eddie and Glenn Rice? Whatever it was. With what the Lakers have right now, with what the Lakers have right now, if I had to bet on one guy, it's Ingram. Not just because of what I talked about with the strength and with just the one thing that needs to get better, but I think in general, small forwards are more valuable than point guards. So if I was the Lakers, I think there's a higher upside to keeping Brandon Ingram around. And pairing him, even if they bring in a Paul George, you bring him in, and you have two elite wings potentially. That's pretty damn tough to beat. I would roll out with that versus whatever D'Angelo Russell might bring. When I think you could probably find on the free market something comparable to whatever we think Russell might turn into.
Yeah,
and
no,
I could sound really stupid saying that. Like it's altogether possible, and I welcome I hope I'm wrong. I hope that we are able to listen to this like a year or two from now and be like, well, there went Anthony again. He writes about Carmelo Anthony one day, and then he says D'Angelo Russell's going to suck the next. I hope that that's how this turns out. But if I had to really bet on one guy, or if I was the Lakers and I said I have to keep one of those two, it's Ingram.
Anthony's mission to make all of Lakers fans hate him is well underway.
You want to go
be a long
gondola to finish this podcast?
No, I think he like his next step. The next step, I'm looking at his list of plans right here, is to go to Staples Center and start chipping away at the Jerry West statue, like with a sledgehammer. So Staples Center security, get ready.
Ronnie Price batting.
Just kidding. Maybe.
All right, so since we're talking about Ingram, let's talk about the two draft picks, Brandon Ingram and Ivica Zubac. Kyle, I mean, how did you feel that they performed this year? Were they kind of ahead of schedule for you, about where you thought? How did you feel about the two rookies?
I think Ingram was a project for most of the year. Like, he was just a guy where you're like, well, wait and see. And then he showed some insane flashes towards the end of the year where you're like, oh, he could be a lot better than or he could be a lot better sooner than we expected,
I mean, he killed a guy.
Yeah, he literally killed a man. Yeah, he could be charged with murder of Cheikh Diallo. So
he hugged him while he was doing it. So I think that makes it a crime of passion and it lessens the sentence.
Yeah, it's a crime of passion. Yeah, and it just made me happy that we still have him. Those flashes towards the end of the year made him in my mind not a guy I would want to give up in any sort of maneuvering in the offseason.
Any?
Well, if it's Ingram for LeBron straight up, okay, yeah, sounds good. No. But Zubac is who I was really, really pleased with, is because he was the 32nd pick, and he was kind of touted going into the draft in the 16-17 range, and he fell because he wanted to come over right away. Or at least that's what we were told. He wanted to come over right away, and a lot of people wanted to stash him. And then he turned into just a fan favorite, pretty much. And I enjoy watching him play the game of basketball, and I enjoy the relationship that he has with Larry Nance, calling him father and all that. He's just I feel like he is every kid who is a Lakers fan out there, but finally getting to play for the Lakers. And it's fun to watch.
Playing
I
for
love
them
him.
while he's the kid that wants to play for the Lakers.
Yeah. He is still pretty much a kid.
Yeah. Jacob, you're a Duke fan, so you don't get to comment on Ingram, but how'd you feel about Zubac this year?
Wow. I mean, he came in with a great reputation. If he owned an Andrew Bynum jersey, you have to be a pretty dedicated fan for that.
I will hear no Bynum slander. None whatsoever.
No, he was surprisingly impressive. He's even going back all the way to the summer league. You could see kind of right away that the Lakers really found something here.
I mean, when he came back to life after dying, that was pretty impressive.
Yes. I believe Jeremy Grant, I think, was the one who ended him.
Yeah,
Yeah, once he came back to life, he kind of got his footing back and whatnot. He was impressive. But yeah, the Lakers kind of brought him along slow, which was kind of frustrating at times, but it seemed like it worked because second half of the season, I mean, he was really impressive. Some of the stuff he can already do at 19 is like wow, the Lakers really have something here. So yeah, I mean, I was at times almost blown away with what he's able to do for someone who's only 19 years old and really just kind of just getting his feet wet in the NBA. I mean, there was kind of a stark contrast at times where between Zubac and Ingram, because Ingram struggled so much, mainly because of the just how much of a twig he is, whereas Zubac was kind of in there banging with guys down low and just kind of keeping his own and whatnot. And I was really impressed. And I mean, the Lakers really have something. If they would have known he was this good, they certainly wouldn't have signed Mozgov.
Yeah. Dylan, do you think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit with Zubac? Because I've seen a lot of people think that, I've seen certain people out there say that he has the highest ceiling of everybody on this roster. I mean, I don't know if any of us agree with that, but do you think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit with Zubac? Anthony, shut up over there.
Honestly, yeah, I'm trying to temper my expectations with Zubac just because I know that he needs a lot of work on the defensive end, but it's really tough too, though, because I mean, he's so young, and we thought coming in that he wouldn't be able to produce for a couple years, and he came out of the gate just guns blazing, he was a really good player already, and he was already so polished. So it's really hard to temper our expectations about him, but I feel like we might need to, just because the sample size that we got wasn't super massive, but even though he was impressive, he still has a lot of work to do, especially defensively.
Yeah, and Anthony, you mentioned Magic and his whole kind of body fat goal for the team this offseason. Zubac was one of the first players I thought of about that, because him and Ingram, and Harrison, you can jump in on this too, but I think him and Ingram both have to grow into their bodies in different ways, right?
Yeah, Anthony and I actually talked about this on yesterday's show, in that somebody sent a screen grab in the comments at Silver Screen and Roll of a picture from Spectrum Sportsnet's Backstage Lakers. They had a shot of the Lakers weight-board and their body fat percentage. Ingram, to the shock of no one, was one of the people below 10% last season, and the least surprising development of all time. And Zubac actually had the highest. He was 18 or 19%, so a little bit of baby fat there. But I kind of lost track of what your question was.
Talking about baby fat.
I mean, they both need to develop in different ways, I guess. Zubac, I think towards the end of the year, if you looked at pictures of him, it was different than the pictures of him from Summer League. So he was starting to get into shape. I think after a whole offseason in the NBA, he'll start to get more of an NBA body. And I think Ingram, same thing, but just in a different way. He's going to have to put on a little bit of weight. And I thought that it was interesting earlier in the year, that Baxter Holmes story about how the Lakers are being really careful. They aren't trying to have him put on a bunch of weight immediately because they thought that sometimes that leads to injuries if you just gain weight too quickly and you can't support it. And so they're clearly going to be patient with him. But when you looked at him attacking the rim, really the whole year, but then especially down the stretch when he started to finish better, it's hard not to think that once he develops a little bit more bulk and he can kind of bounce off of the guy, he can make guys bounce off of him instead of bouncing off of them. That's going to improve even more.
Yeah, no, that was something I definitely noticed with Ingram early in the year. It was really frustrating because I liked how aggressive he was at times, attacking the basket, but he couldn't finish through that contact, and that was really kind of tough to see. But yeah, like you said, as the year went on, he just seemed to kind of, I don't know if it was improved strength or just kind of understanding maybe his limitations more, understanding his body a little bit better, but he just seemed to all of a sudden be able to finish. And it seemed like he really slowed down when he started to get inside. He wasn't kind of rushing attempts. It seemed like he would kind of absorb the contact, and it was almost like somebody read him the continuation rule, right? Like he would start to take contact and then realize I can take another step or two without putting the ball on the floor and just lay the ball in. There was a few plays like that really stood out. So I think I don't know if it was his body or just a better understanding of kind of the game, I guess. But yeah, he certainly seemed to show improvement in that area, and I'm really curious to see how he's going to be when he really adds strength to his core.
The thing that I noticed like down the stretch with Ingram wasn't necessarily like that he was finishing better because he was bulked up at all. It was mainly like he's understanding how to use his length and like how actually like incredibly long he is, and like using that to his advantage to be able to finish at a higher rate. And I think that once he gets like a better grasp of that, like he'll be like really, really, really special.
And well, hopefully he does, or he makes Anthony look a little bit smarter. I mean, I don't want to say it's an easy thing to do.
I mean, the fact that Anthony's so high on him does make me a little bit less optimistic.
Well, think about this. Think about this, right? Anthony's super high on him, and the Kings wanted to trade for him at the deadline. So
Bust confirmed.
That's two red flags right there.
Dang it. I really liked him. I thought he was going to be good. Darn.
And he's from Duke. Oh, God. We're all screwed.
I guess he's the next Corey Brewer.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to say I missed some of the conversation. I was paying some attention while Harrison was talking. I wanted to get back to Zubac. Did
you catch the part where Harrison talked about his baby fat?
Yeah, probably. But I wanted to mention Zubac really quickly because we were, I think it was Dylan who was talking about, are we getting ahead of ourselves with Zubac here?
Wait, that's not Grant?
Oh my God.
But I think we are, and it's because it's not necessarily because of anything Zubac did or anything anybody else didn't do or whatever. We as a Laker fan base are tremendous. Like if there's one thing that we are really, really, really good at, it's appreciating somebody who we have zero expectations for, right? So like when we entered this season, we all kind of said, well, we'll see what Zubac does. He might be okay. And then he goes out there and he's not Robert Sacre, and we're all like, oh my God, this is his jersey, So and this isn't to say that like he might not develop into anything. He's only 19 years old, but I do think we need to catch ourselves a little bit before we start, putting him in any kind of breath with Russell. Like I had somebody trying to tell me that Zubac was more untradeable than Ingram or Russell, and for one thing, no, and for two things, no, and then for three things, the game is going away from the type of player Zubac is. Right, like poor Enes Kanter.
Somebody's got to make the game big again.
What's his name? Donovan. What's Donovan's first name?
Billy
Donovan. There's that great meme or Vine of him telling his assistant coach, I think it was Mo Cheeks, we can't play Cantor, right? And it's because Cantor, he's supremely skilled offensively, but he's so slow. And this was kind of the issue with the Mozgov signing, was that where do the Lakers think basketball is going? And maybe Zubac is able to trim off the body fat, like Harrison maybe apparently talked about. But I don't know that it's going to be anything more than a 20-minute, 15, 20-minute 20-minute night a guy.
Well, you don't need to play more than 20 minutes when you're up by 40 every night.
But I just don't know if they're going to be able to play him against the direction that basketball is going in. That's why Ingram is so valuable, because the Giannis's, the LeBrons, the Durants, like, you want a 6'9" extraterrestrial wing to be able to keep up with all the other ones. Zubac can't do that, and that's the concern there.
They probably shouldn't play Zubac at small forward in that case.
Point guard. Point Zoo.
So the secret is to get an alien at small forward.
That's basically all I've taken out of that.
And don't tell our president about it, because he's not into we have to get going here pretty soon, but I wanted to talk. I'm sure you guys, I don't know if Gary, you talked about the offseason and the Carmelo thing. Did you guys want to say anything, throw any pot shots at me? I won't even retort.
No, I mean, we're going to talk about the offseason next. I guess, Anthony, if you want to, I know you wrote about it, and if, for those people that are interested, Anthony wrote it, so I don't blame you if you're not. But up on silverscreenroll.com, Anthony wrote about the idea of trading for Carmelo Anthony. And Anthony, I guess I'll give you a chance to plug that and kind of your reasoning behind it.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
It's pretty simple. It's not about Carmelo the player. That's not it at all. I had so many people jumping in my mentions Carmelo doesn't make them a playoff team. It's like, who the hell are the Lakers going to acquire this year? It's going to make them a playoff team. They've won 26 games. And even if they are a playoff team, they're going to get smoked by the Warriors in the first round anyway, right? So it doesn't. I don't care about squeaking into the 8 spot and seeing what the Lakers can learn there. It's about Phil has literally zero leverage here. If he had any a week ago, he went out and torched it when he announced to everybody that he was going to trade the guy. And he announced to everybody he was going to trade a guy that has a no trade clause, right? So this is a perfectly great opportunity to make up for the mistake that was the Luol Deng contract. You aren't going to get rid of Timothy Mozgov because Joakim Noah is there, and you don't want 2 7-foot-tall you don't want 2 7-foot-tall waterlogged corpses on your cap. But
wait, are you telling me that Joakim Noah and Timofey Mozgov is not the next Twin Towers? What are you trying to say?
I was just the guy who was crapping on Zubac because I was concerned about the direction of basketball. I guess if you're Phil and you think that you can take basketball to the great yesteryears, then sure. But if you're New York, your team president just went out and shat on the best player you've had since the 70s. And he already has a no trade clause. So sure, he can force his way to the Clippers, and in which case the best piece that you're getting is Austin Rivers and maybe a couple future firsts. But even there, how are you going to explain to a fan base that has actually really liked Carmelo? It's kind of odd the way people are kind of eulogizing Carmelo right now on Twitter, where they're saying, well, if that's the end of the Carmelo era, then, it was really kind of fun. If you're the Lakers, though, you have to take advantage of this opportunity. You have an opportunity to shed the Luol Deng contract. You have an opportunity to shed or sell high on a Jordan Clarkson piece because he's the epitome. He's like the prototypical player that stupid Knicks fans would love. And you have this Houston pick that you acquired right when you took the job, so you can even look smart. The people who were willing to drool over Magic Johnson running the Lakers get to drool even more. So you have Niagara Falls going now for Magic. So you kind of take all these opportunities, and if you can make that trade, then you make it. And here's the thing, that the other thing too, that like people got all angry at me about the podcast that I did with Jared Dubin. The point of the podcast was to make a trade. Like, it wasn't an option for me to be able to walk away and not make a trade and waste an hour of everybody's time. Right? So had I done that, my mentions would have somehow been even uglier. Like, just people saying like, well, great, I'm glad I wasted an hour of my time to listen to two people not come to a trade. But if you're the Lakers, you say, all right, if you're not going to take Luol Deng, Jordan Clarkson, and the Houston first for this, then go kick rocks and have fun with Austin Rivers. They have all the leverage here, so you have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting strategy. So one of the questions I was asked, and I'll just throw this to you real quick. So would you rather the team trade, considering all the circumstances and everything, would you rather the team trade for Carmelo or Paul George this summer, considering what you'd have to give up for each player?
That's where it's kind of funny, though, is because the two aren't mutual. The pieces that you would be including in a Paul George trade aren't the pieces that you would be including in a Carmelo Anthony trade. So the Lakers theoretically and hypothetically could very easily make both those trades happen, right? If I had to choose one or the other, of course I'd rather have Paul George the player. And if all it costs is, maybe D'Angelo Russell and the lottery pick, and then whatever, it would probably be Jordan Clarkson. You have to take Monte Ellis back so that they get they get their cap relief too. Then sure, fine. Like you kind of have to make that trade just to appease the Kobe Bryant Avies out there. But in terms of what's probably best for the Lakers moving forward, it's the Melo trade, and it's not close. It's you get rid of the Deng contract so that you can sign Paul George in a year, and you still have assets to be able to get him immediate help as soon as he gets here.
Yeah, I mean, the Deng contract was a worse investment than like a xylophone factory or something like that.
Yeah, it's a worse investment than poor David Locke made in Locked On Lakers.
We'll cut that part.
Yeah, no, we're not editing that part out. But well, if you guys are leaving, I guess I want to thank you, sort of, for just kind of coming on the podcast.
Before we go, I'd like to hear a couple retorts. Like, is there aside from the people, and it is kind of funny too, because in the article itself, I said it requires more thought than people who are going to quote tweet this and say, "No, you effing idiot." And yet I still had people 5 seconds after the article went live saying, "No, you effing idiot." So aside from that as a retort, like, is there anything, that would make you say no, just no matter what, the Lakers don't make this trade?
I mean, that's just my usual quote tweet for you in general. Kyle, go ahead and I'll let you start.
No, I'm kidding. No, I actually think that Anthony's onto something here, and it takes a lot out of me to say that.
Wait, did you say he's onto something or on something?
Onto something. Like, I actually don't mind. I would like it if Melo were on the team. It sounds weird to say. It definitely does sound weird, and I don't even think it's. I don't think that it gets done. I'll say that, but it would be very interesting if it does. So, yeah, thanks, Anthony, for saying what none of us really ever wanted to say.
I'm willing to predict it, that I think Carmelo winds up a Laker this year. I'm actually willing to go that far. Genie is so starved for legitimate NBA talent that this is probably going to happen.
Yeah. When I was listening to your podcast with Ireland, like, just thinking about that, it made me almost kind of certain that one of Paul George or Carmelo is going to be a Laker. I just think that, like, they have too many assets, and like you said, the Knicks have no leverage there, and they want a star so bad that they might just go for it at all costs. And especially if they keep even if they keep the top 3 pick, then I mean, there's even more firepower to make a trade like that happen. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be all in for a Melo trade just because mainly the cap relief, and you're getting a shorter contract, and it'd be a home run if he he has an opt out after next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, if he exercised that, like, it'd be an absolute grand slam,
Yeah.
Jacob?
Jacob said publicly agreed. I didn't even think that was possible.
I did. No, this is hard to say. Anthony's right.
Oh boy.
I'll see you guys later.
Purely like what he said, from a financial, just looking at it that way, it makes sense because there aren't going to be options for the Lakers to get rid of Luol Deng's contract unless you're going to include like a first-round draft pick that's probably going to be a really high draft pick. So this is just strictly from that sense. This is a chance to not necessarily get out of Luol Deng's contract, but lessen the blow of it. And from that aspect alone, I mean, it makes sense. And in the meantime, you're getting, Melo, I think you guys talked about it. I mean, I think he's pretty undervalued, underrated almost right now.
Insanely underrated.
Yeah, I mean, he provides
well, I was gonna say, like, people were livid at trading Jordan Clarkson for Carmelo Anthony. Like, if you would have said that 2 years ago, think about how funny a statement that would have been.
Well, no, but I think what people are trying to get at is that Carmelo Anthony is kind of like Beast in the movie Beauty and the Beast, where he needs like a very specific fit to unlock his full potential as a shooter. Like, he needs defense, he needs like other shooters and that type of thing. Like Bell in this really extended analogy. And so,
Whoa.
I gave Harrison weed tonight, and he is
no,
not.
we didn't. No, we didn't. I'm completely sober.
Wow.
That was a great analogy. I don't know what you guys want from me.
Carmelo and the Lakers are Beauty and the Beast. You heard it here first.
I do want to say one last thing though, like, because a lot of people. So even on top of Carmelo, the commodity, Carmelo, the market inefficiency, because of what it means for the Lakers in terms of the contracts that they'd be getting rid of. I can't think of an offensive player based on what I've seen from Ingram this year that I would most want Ingram to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he wants to be physical. You saw him seeking contact almost to a fault this year. And if he was able to learn from Carmelo,
does he need Carmelo to teach him how to back into guys and be bigger though?
No, I think it's a talent. Utilizing leverage, utilizing footwork, understanding like which guys in the league are going to defend you which way, how, you know, based on looking at somebody, how they're probably going to defend you. Like, Carmelo isn't as great a scorer as he is on accident. And for Ingram, being, you know, just kind of seeing where he wants his game to go anyway, I just think it makes a ton of sense for him not only to have to defend Carmelo in practice every day, which is going to suck for him, but be able to learn from Carmelo offensively every day in practice as well. They keep on talking about wanting, you know, him needing to learn from Kobe. What's Kobe going to be able to teach him that Carmelo might not be able to, but with a more hands-on approach? I just
how to get to the finals.
I didn't realize I was sitting next to Skip Bayless.
How to make Phil Jackson not hate you for some reason.
But hey, it was really nice seeing everybody. It was cool jumping on the Lakers Outsiders thing again. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for not bumping us as soon as we signed on.
I gotta find a way to lock you guys out, but
I'm gonna get kicked out of Slack. Like,
you can
tonight.
try, but we have the password.
Talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, see you guys. Yeah.
There's just one more thing about, I mean, just Melo the player the Lakers need to have a lot of things they need to improve on. I think Pete and Darius said it. They need to improve on passing, shooting, and defending, and that's it. But
That's all.
yeah, but I think shooting is a big thing because, we saw it with D'Lo. He'd come off screens and there'd just be a whole bunch of bodies in the paint because nobody can shoot. And that's kind of what made Nick Young so valuable to this team. I was looking today. This season, Melo shot 45.5% on spot-up jumpers. It was 1.23 points per possession, and that was in the 93.8 percentile this season. Just something like that. I think Porzingis even mentioned it before. Just having Melo on the floor, defenses are going to focus on him. So that's going to just – the gravity of having Melo on the floor is going to pull people towards him. And it opens up the floor. And, just something as simple as that. I know he wouldn't become it, but just having Melo as a spot-up shooter on the wing or in the corner, that alone helps the Lakers. Luol Deng couldn't do that last year.
Yeah, well, it's hard to shoot when you have no legs, but
Hey, I will not take Luol Deng slander.
With a podcast that featured Anthony and Harrison, Kyle might be the first one to get booted off. That's incredible. No, basically, I completely understand where Anthony is coming from. I think any opportunity you have to get rid of one of the two horrible contracts of Luol Deng or Mozgov, Timofey Mozgov.
That would be awful.
You have to take that opportunity. As long as it's smart. And with Carmelo, I think he's not a great fit. Like let's be honest, he is honestly a bad fit with this group. Really, he can shoot the ball, which like you said, Jacob, that adds a skill set that they need. But the way he kind of plays just doesn't really, just doesn't align with the playing style of this group.
Everything Luke Walton wants to do, Carmelo Anthony does not do.
Right. So that's where it's problematic, and he doesn't help you out defensively. But I will say, the Lakers have a logjam right now with the front court. But if that's, if the deal is, say, Luol Deng and Jordan Clarkson or whatever, you're not necessarily adding to that logjam. If you get rid of Deng in the process, you stay right where you're at. And I think I feel kind of bad for Carmelo because I feel like he's getting the Rondo treatment among NBA fans and, people that cover the league. I still think, he has a skill. He's an elite scorer still and that's still such a valuable skill set to have. There's just the rest of his game, we kind of treat him like he's not a good player anymore. And he's still a good NBA player. He's a very good scorer. And that still holds value. And the ability to shoot the ball from the perimeter, even though, like I said, not a great fit with this roster or this system. I completely understand where Anthony's coming from. It's a poor fit, but if say he would opt out after next season, you only had to deal with 1 year of a player, being a poor fit. And that, it would be fair to say that really could hurt development too, and I would completely understand that too. But from a team building standpoint, getting rid of 3 more years of Luol Deng at $17 to $18 million a year, and getting 1 year probably of Carmelo, maybe 2, that still helps you moving forward. And you get a player that's a lot better. Like, simply put, if you're asking anybody, you want Carmelo or Luol Deng, 100 out of 100 are saying Carmelo Anthony, unless it's, Luol Deng's relative or something.
What if I'm in the survey? I don't know.
Oh, God. Kyle, you're fired. But, but no, and another thing you could do with Carmelo too, you might not get great value, but if it's not working, you could honestly try and flip him, try and trade him for something, and kind of clear up clear up the logjam a little bit. You'd have options. It's not like you would be stuck with Carmelo forever. So I mean, I would totally get that. Like I said, with every trade, it depends on the deal. It depends on the return on your investment. Like I said, if it's Luol Deng and Jordan Clarkson, that's the two, and say Carmelo plus another contract coming back, a small contract to make the money work or whatever. Then, I mean, yeah, I honestly wouldn't have an issue with that, because like I said, you're probably dealing with it for a year. But
and one more thing. I mean, I know I'm sounding like I'm defending Melo a lot. One more thing that he provides, there were a lot of times last year where the Lakers, especially late in games, they just didn't have a shot maker. Like they just didn't have somebody who could just make a shot in a close game. I mean, you would hope that D'Angelo or Ingram develop into that, but they didn't. I mean, D'Angelo did at some points, but that is what Melo's like best at. Like you can throw him the ball and say, "Here, we need a bucket," and he can post some guy up, turn around, and hit a 17-footer or something like that, and just stuff like that. I mean, and he can teach guys that. But yeah, I mean, all that I've said that I've defended Melo. He is like the complete opposite, the antithesis of what Luke Walton wants. Like he wants ball movement, spacing, all that stuff, and Melo might be the worst like black hole on offense in the league. So it would take a whole lot of buying in from Melo, and you would have to almost exclusively play him at the 4. Which I don't know if that's – I mean, I know in the past it's not something he's been too fond of and just stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of red flags here, but, I mean, I'm mainly just looking at this from just like Carmelo, Carmelo's contract, I guess.
Yeah, you're looking at
it. That's how you have to look at this.
You're looking at it from a roster or salary cap construction standpoint. You don't look at it as – he's a building block moving forward. It's all about clearing cap space and providing yourself that type of flexibility while getting a player that still has a valuable skill that he's still very good at. No, I mean, I get it. Anthony makes some great points. I still think he's an idiot just in general, but no.
Let that not be lost from all of this.
Yeah, we've said too many nice things about Anthony. We need to get back to the norm. But speaking of acquiring new players, let's jump into free agency. We've been going kind of a little long here, and honestly, my laptop's getting close to start dying. But I want you guys to go down the line, and Dylan, I'll go to you first. So obviously we want the marquee free agents to sign with the Lakers, like the Gordon Haywards, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, so on and so forth, Steph Curry. What's kind of one of the more tier B or tier C guys that you would like to see the Lakers try and get in free agency this year?
One of the guys that I think that they should go after that might not be overly attainable, but he's still one in that like second tier guys would be Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from the Pistons. I think that he's a restricted free agent, so they'd have to sign him to like a max offer sheet or something. But he'd be a really good player to go alongside D'Angelo. He shoots the ball. He's an improved shooter. He's pretty athletic, solid defender. Like he's basically like what we'd want Jordan Clarkson to be. And so he's one of the ones that I would like. But my first choice would probably Drew Holiday, just because like the Lakers like are lacking in playmaking outside of D'Angelo, and getting somebody like Drew Holiday that not only is he's a good playmaker, but he's a really good defender. So you could stick him alongside D'Angelo and kind of cover up some of those issues in the backcourt. And so those are my two probably like 1A and 1B. for free
Yeah,
agents.
I really like Drew Holiday. It's probably going to take near max money or possibly max money to get him, which is a little bit scary because of his injury history. He's had some durability issues in the past, but as far as his fit with the team, his skill set, yeah, I agree with you. I like his ability to score, his ability to facilitate and defend. He checks off a lot of boxes that the Lakers need in terms of new players this year. So
Yeah, I'm just not sure how like attainable he is. Just like with the Pelicans, adding Boogie. So, but I mean, if they can get him, even if they have to give him a max contract, I'd be for it.
yeah. Jacob, what's a free agent kind of a little bit under the radar that you'd like?
I talked before with Hani about this. A guy I would hope that the Lakers have kind of high on their list, makes a lot of sense, would be Sean Livingston. He is getting a bit up there in age, admittedly. It would be maybe like a 1 or 2 year deal. He's 31, but he makes it just a ton of sense for if the Lakers are looking to play D'Angelo more off ball. I think that you would bring him in as similar to the role he is right now, is kind of a sixth man, first guard off the bench type. Unless you really want to play D'Angelo off ball, but I don't know how well that would work. But regardless, he's a veteran point guard. He can run the offense. He knows the system that Luke wants. And he's just a smart player. He's somebody that could teach a lot of things to D'Angelo and Markelle Fultz. He just makes a lot of sense. I mean, and like I said, he knows what offense Luke's trying to install, and that alone, having a point guard who knows what needs to be done on the court and can just command the offense, that alone is just incredibly valuable. So, I mean, signing him to something like a 2 year deal, I don't know how much money he's going to require, but he's basically going to be almost probably forced out of Golden State with their cap situation unless he takes the minimum. So yeah, I think that's somebody that they should look at.
Kyle, who's your guy on this list that we're talking about?
I want to go quickly back to what Dylan said about Drew Holiday. Not only is he like just a guy that we should be looking at, maybe even giving like a max deal to, but it's important to note that he is only 3 years older than Jordan Clarkson, even though he's been playing in the league for 8 years. So like, you're taking a slightly older guy, but you're also taking a guy who has way more experience. And yeah, you're making a bit of a risk by trying to sign him with his injury history, but he's fantastic. I'm actually shocked that Jacob didn't mention Jody Meeks at all.
I was leaving that one out there.
I think he'd be a pretty good fit, and obviously he's played for the Lakers before, and I just want to say Meeks be like again. So
I would do anything to be able to tweet that again.
Yeah, it would be a joyous day for us all.
Meeks is interesting because ever since he's left the Lakers, he's had problems staying healthy.
Yeah,
and he can still shoot the ball, which is something the Lakers certainly need. They certainly need that out of the guard position too. They just need perimeter shooters. And he would be a cheap option, right? He wouldn't be somebody
makes a lot of sense if Nick Young opts out. I mean, we have a gaping hole at shooting guard.
Well, and you think about how he was with D'Antoni's system, and there's a lot of similarities with what the Lakers run now that D'Antoni ran with the Lakers and continues to run now with the Rockets. Obviously, it's not the same thing, but there's similarities that emphasize kind of the same principles, and that's the type of offense that Jody Meeks would be able to flourish in, I think. So Kyle, I like that choice because it's like I said, he's a guy that would probably be really cheap and can provide us a skill that the Lakers desperately need with his perimeter shooting.
I just want to add that I'm totally okay. I'm totally in on signing Jody Meeks, like if he's a cheap option. But the first time that there's a fast break with him and Corey Brewer, I might instantly regret that decision.
I'd pay top dollar to see that right now.
Another option that I had, again, surprised that Jacob didn't mention it, is JJ Redick, a guy familiar with the LA scene. Like Gary said, we kind of need a guy who can just shoot at the guard position and shoot at the guard position. And yeah, I like him. And sorry, Justin Russo, I know you're not watching this probably, but sorry. He'd be a good fit. And then just real quick, a joke one. Sasha Vujacic.
We're gonna sign Harrison.
Yeah,
we just had him on the podcast.
Yeah,
we should have just asked him what his free agency plans were.
If we sign any shooting guard from the Knicks, it's got to be Ron Baker.
And now Dylan gets to be kicked.
You got the president of the Ron Baker fan club over there.
I'm actually glad.
I'm glad you brought up JJ Redick because he's one of the guys that I have in my column that I don't want to sign, and it's nothing against JJ. It's just
sure.
The choice of school, the college that he went to, is very, very bad. But my thing with JJ Redick is that I believe he's 33 years old and he's going to be 34 in June. So, the age certainly doesn't match the timeline of this group, I think. Although, he provides, he'd be a great fit with this team and what they need. I just think the combination of his current age, I think his defense is starting to really kind of to fall off. It's not what it used to be a couple years ago. And I think he's going to cost a lot of money still. I still think there's going to be a team, and it might be the Clippers, it might be somebody else, that's going to pay him a lot of money. So I would be just really skeptical to pay, a decent amount for a guy that's that old, considering this team is probably still another year or two away from even making the playoffs, unless, they make some major roster changes. So I completely understand people that want Redick, because like I said, he would be an awesome fit with this group right here and right now. But I think down the line, that's kind of a contract that could come back to bite him, depending on what his market value is. Because I think, and I don't know if this is the case, but I feel like he's going to get some pretty lucrative offers out there. So that's what would worry me with him. One guy that I do want, though, my pick would be Ian Clark. Clark, I think, is a guy that's kind of right in line with this team and where they're going from an age standpoint. I think he just turned 26. Obviously has familiarity with Luke Walton, and he just provides a skill set that the Lakers need. The guy can shoot. I think he can be a really good defender. Well, maybe not a really good defender, but he can be a solid defensive player. And he can score, and if you can get him, I think he's a guy that if you can get him on a deal kind of similar to maybe what Clarkson got last year, that's pretty good value considering the cap is going to go up even more than what it was this season. And especially if you trade Clarkson, then you don't have two of those types of contracts on the books. But that's one guy I would like. Maybe some other kind of under the radar guys that might help. Maybe a guy like Darren Collison, Patty Mills, maybe CJ Miles, guys that can provide some shooting or some playmaking. And then I have to say this for Ryan Kellip here. He's probably not listening, but Steve Novak might be on the free agent market. So I don't want it, but I know Ryan would. So I got to give Steve a shout out there. So
there's a couple names I had written down. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to steal all the names from you guys. I think the thing that I think we would all agree that we really need a shooting guard, especially if Nick Young opts out. Because right now there isn't a true shooting guard on the roster. Maybe David Nwaba, I guess, but he kind of doesn't do the shooting part. The couple of names I had in mind, you just mentioned, CJ Miles has a player option. He's also I think 30. He doesn't really fit timeline-wise, but he can shoot, like, really, really well. Tim Hardaway Jr., he's a restricted free agent. The Hawks were trying to trade him at the deadline, so I don't know how much interest they have in paying him.
Right.
So that could be someone to kind of keep an eye on. He is only 24. He just turned 25. He just turned 25 in March. So he fits timeline-wise with the Lakers. And then Justin Holiday is another one who he's on the Knicks. I think the Knicks are almost turning into like the Kings, and that anybody that goes there is probably just going to play worse because of the environment, which I say only half joking. But I mean, he's someone who probably will come a bit cheap. He only averaged 7.7 points, but he played in all 82 games. Shot 35% from three, which is down from last year. And then one other name.
Also on while you're on Holiday, real quick, he also played under Steve Kerr and Luke Walton in Golden State for a year before he went to, I think it was the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hawks and the Bulls, yeah. But the only other name, which it would take a whole lot of dominoes to fall, but it's somebody that I've always kind of had an eye on, and it feels like he'd be a perfect fit for the Lakers, would be Serge Ibaka. It would both require the Raptors to not pay him, which doesn't make sense unless I guess they lose to the Bucks and decide to blow it up, because I don't really know why they'd trade for him and then not re-sign him. And it'd probably also require the Lakers to like somehow get rid of Mozgov's contract. Or something along those lines. But if they did, I mean, Ibaka's only 27. He'll be 28 by the start of the next season. He's a rim protector. He's a shooter. You could play him with Randall and kind of help him defensively. And, I mean, theoretically, he feels like the perfect fit, but I would be stunned if Toronto – I mean, it would take some kind of meltdown by the Raptors and just a complete shift in kind of the direction of their franchise for him not to be on the team next season.
I mean, they're melting down in the playoffs again. So
they are right now.
No, interesting, great stuff, guys. This has gone on a little longer than I expected it to. We had 2 uninvited visitors, but we'll do another podcast here shortly, hopefully within the next couple of days, because we'll talk about Paul George and maybe dive a little more into free agency, kind of some of the Lakers' own players. Should they keep them? Should they not? Some things like that. But up next for the Lakers is the big day. May 16th, I believe, is the NBA draft lottery. The Lakers have a 46.9% chance of keeping their top 3 protected pick, 15.6% chance of landing the top pick. So we'll all hold our breath for that. But, yeah, I'm not even nervous. I'm kind of expecting the worst with it. But so let's go. We're going to go ahead and cut this off now, especially before my laptop dies. But Dylan, Jacob, Kyle, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. Anthony and Harrison, I guess you guys too. But no, like I said, look for another podcast here, hopefully in the next couple of days. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Lakers Outsiders, and like us on Facebook as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you guys for joining me. And we'll try and get another one in before the NFL draft.